Welcome to Eastlake. We are an inclusive faith community dedicated to the free search for truth and meaning, seeking to live out a more just and life-giving spirituality in the modern world. We see faith as less about doctrines and dogmas demanding total agreement, but a life to be lived, enjoyed, and given away to others. What unites us is a growing awareness that life is a gift and love is the point. We welcome the entire human family, regardless of race, age, creed, physical abilities, marital or economic status, gender identity, or sexual orientation. So if you are curious and have come to see, if you are tired and have come to rest, if you are grateful and have come to share, if you are journeying and have come to grow, if you are wounded and have come to heal, if you are joyful and have come to shine, welcome home. Today, Kristen and Peter talk with Bart Campolo as they continue our series, What's on Your Mind? Please check the description for links to our quarterly Spotify playlist and guided meditation.
Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in as we continue our mental health series. We're really excited we get to hear today from our friend Bart Campolo. How are you today, Bart?
Good. Hi, everybody.
It's great to have you. I'm joined here by my friend Kristen Birchnell. I'm Peter Gadd, and we're just going to jump right in. We've had a lot of different topics that we've gone over so far today. I'm not sure you want to call yourself this by any means, but we're going to talk about the topic of conflict resolution. And either that means you have a lot of conflict in your life and you're practicing how to resolve it, or you have a lot of experience resolving conflict. Regardless, we're just excited to pick your brain on the topic.
Yeah. And it's funny, like I used to hang out with this guy named William Ury. I was working on this crazy project in the Middle East called The Abraham's Path. And William is this famous author. And you might not know his name, but you'll know his book. His most famous book was called Getting to Yes. Mm-hmm. And we all had to read it like when we were in business school or college or somewhere. Like It's a book about conflict. And anyway, William's this like very zenned out guy. He's very cool. He teaches at Harvard and he's all, but William used to say, it's really not conflict resolution because there's a lot of conflicts you can't resolve. Mm. He said it's conflict transformation, where you take a conflict that is really toxic and hurting everybody and you transform it into a constructive conflict in which people may not see things the same way, but they understand each other better, and there's and they figure out a way to accommodate each other. And sometimes you resolve a conflict, sometimes you actually clear it out, but a lot of times it's just a matter of making it something that doesn't hurt everybody so much.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great kind of, I think, goal too, or maybe a little bit more attainable goal than resolving every conflict, right? Maybe for those, I know obviously Bart, you were a part of our panel, which was fantastic. For those of you that maybe are tuning in now and you missed the panel, that was awesome. So maybe go back and listen to that. But for people that might not know kind of what you're up to now, you have a counseling practice. You're a licensed mental health professional. Is that a good term?
I'm really recently. Cool. I was like the humanist chaplain at USC. And then when I came back to Cincinnati, because my wife hated Los Angeles, I had to figure out like, how do I make, I wasn't making a living there either, but like, I really had to figure out ultimately the savings had run out and my wife was like, you got to do something. And so we tried to figure out like, if you're a former minister, a former evangelical preacher, do you have any transferable skill that you can turn into a legitimate enterprise? And so it was like selling timeshares or go to therapy school. And so I've always loved talking to people one-on-one and working through stuff. And so, so I became a therapist, and I still podcast, and I still do like this, humanist congregation here in Cincinnati. Like I sort of something like that wants to grow up and be Eastlake when it's grown up. But in the meantime, I make a living doing therapy. Yeah. And a lot of and for the purpose of this conversation, I do a lot of couples therapy.
Yeah, so
And
I was curious, even as you think about it at a really high level, right? Mental health and conflict resolution, maybe some might not necessarily connect the dots. So how would you connect the dots for people listening?
you know, here's the thing: is that the biggest mental health issues in our country right now that people talk about all the time are depression and anxiety. Okay, now I'm not going to get all technical and take you through all my love of Johann Hari and Chasing the Scream and Lost Connections, but like I am going to tell you that anxiety and depression, in my experience, are almost always rooted in a lack of connection, trauma, and or a lack of connection, and oftentimes trauma that has created a lack of connection, where people don't feel understood or connected to other people, or to nature, or to their work, or to themselves. And so relationships are usually at the center of most mental health problems. Now, like there are these, schizophrenia, like they're like, bipolar disorder, like there are these things that come upon you, these bodily things that hit you like a truck out of nowhere, and they affect your relationships, and relationships are a part of the way you treat them, but they're not rooted in relationship. They're rooted in chemistry or something else. But a lot of the depression and anxiety that I see, and certainly when married couples come in and they're struggling, a lot of it boils down to like obviously there's a brokenness in the relationship, and a lot of times the brokenness in the relationship comes because people who started out with a good relationship or had a good relationship, somebody wrongs somebody, something goes wrong, and they don't know how to fix it. And so, when I marry couples, when I'm performing the ceremony, what I go like, take a good look at this person, because, first of all, take a picture, because you'll never see that person again. They'll change, people say, I'm marrying this person because we want to spend the rest of our lives together. I'm like, good luck on that. Like I've been married to 14 different women. They're all named Marty, but like, my gosh, so people change. And the other things I always say is like, take a good look at this person, because like no one is ever going to hurt you more consistently and more deeply than that person.
It's inspiring.
You say that during a ceremony?
I do. And all the older couples in the audience are going like, hey man, oh boy, I know what and I'm so it's like, so what I say is like, listen, here's the thing. You don't believe me because you're so in love, but like you're going to hurt each other. And so if you want to know how to build this wonderful relationship and how to keep it, you're going to have to learn how to get through those, how to get on the other side. So that means you're going to have to learn the skills that, that simply stated, like, and I do it more poetically in a marriage ceremony, but I'm like, ultimately, you're going to have to learn how to forgive. But before you get to forgiveness, in a functional relationship, there's sort of three steps that I would say. It's like, you have to learn how to confront somebody hurts you, and you have to learn to say, hey, and like there's a whole skill to confronting. And then that person has to apologize. And there's a whole set of stuff that like, what's a good apology? And then the other person has to forgive, and that's a whole other thing. And so you would be shocked, Peter. You would be shocked at how many people, when married couples come in, and when I start to ask them, like, tell me how apology and forgiveness worked in your family growing up. Like when your parents apologized to you or to each other, how did that work? And they go like, I can never remember my mother apologizing to me or my father apologizing to me.
Totally. Yeah, I was thinking about that with even conversation with Brittany. I'm interested, Kristen, in how you guys talk about it, but way different family dynamics in terms of confrontation was common and not done well, but it was like, we're like a debate, confront everybody family. Like we'll tell you there's something in your teeth and be the first one to point it out.
Right.
And her family's like a sweep under the rug. We're always best friends. like something terrible just happened. Now we're going to play a board game, you know, like completely ignore.
Yeah. There is no
So,
conflict.
yeah.
You know, and so,
always good.
right. And Kristen, I don't know if you can relate to that. Like,
Yeah, you know, I'm trying to think about what I saw and watched growing up. Um, and I remember not a lot of confrontation. I think not a lot of confrontation like in front of us. So not a lot of resolution scene either.
yeah.
Like I know my parents had conflict, but I think their way of trying to be healthy about it was like, don't do that in front of the kids and resolve it all outside of that. And I could use
yeah.
good examples of seeing that. And I think about it all the time because I don't think my husband and I are good at it. And I've even noticed my kids, they're only 4 and 6, and they really struggle with saying I'm sorry. Like it, and I try not to do the like force them to just say the words because then they're like, sorry, you know. But it's such a, I don't know if it's DNA from our families or if it's just humankind, that there's some sort of thing with like this fear of admitting that you're wrong or that you made a mistake, which is so something that I want to break, I guess, because right now, you know, with kids when they bicker, we have a lot of that going on right now, and a lot of trying to teach, you know, that it's okay to make mistakes and you want to say, I'm sorry, are you okay? Like that kind of stuff. And it's not going super well.
And you know, and when we talk about mental health, like one of the great ironies of this is that once people learn how apology and forgiveness actually works in a relationship, they go like, oh my gosh, like I almost want to do something wrong so that I can apologize, so that I can be forgiven, because like it feels so great. And you realize it's almost like when a bone breaks and then they put it in the cast, what they say is like the bone is the strongest at the place of healing. That's oftentimes what happens in a really well handled problem, is that people end up saying like, I don't want to cause, I wouldn't want to do that again on purpose, but like it turns out that brought us together, and like we're closer now than we were before I screwed up or before she screwed up.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
can see that.
That's good.
Sure.
Yeah, think about your closest friendships, and like what the crucial moments were when you were like, oh, this is really a friend. And a lot of times it's like a lot of people screw up, but this guy circled back, and he was like, I love you so much, and I'm sorry I did that to you, Peter, and we worked it through, we talked it through, and then I was like, dude, we're really friends now.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's great. I think those elements too are kind of like, I want to hear you maybe even go into them a little bit. Like when I think of, you said, you know, a good confrontation. So like, all right, walk me through, Bart. I know how I have historically confronted, and I would love to hear what does a healthy one look like.
Okay.
We've all been confronted poorly, right?
No,
So
this is great. I'm gonna do the confrontation thing a little bit. Then I'll do the apology thing hardcore, and then I'll do the forgiveness thing kind of in the middle.
Cool.
And like honestly, this is going to suck for you guys as a podcast or as a thing, because we're supposed to be dialoguing.
No, that's great. No, this is perfect.
But I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to, like, I've worked this crap out. And by the way, when I give you like my 3 steps to this or my 5 steps to that, like if you go on the internet, you'll find like the 9 elements of a great apology, the 4 elements of the great apology. Like everybody has a number. Everybody has their own way of explaining it and chopping it up. Like I'm not saying this is the best or this is the right one. I'm just saying like this is one that's worked for me. So it's like, you know, but like they all have the same basic elements. Like, you know, people that know about this stuff and they know that there are certain things here. So okay. So when it comes to the confrontation, Peter, somebody has wronged you. Okay. And you're angry and upset. Or you feel wronged. Maybe you haven't even been wronged, but you feel wronged. You're angry, like things have not gone your way. And as soon as I say this, you're like, oh yeah, I've heard that 1,000 times. That's nothing new. And they go like, it's really important that when you confront somebody, especially somebody you care about, that you do your best to use I statements. I felt hurt by. I didn't like. I was angry when. Rather than you statements like, you made me feel angry. You hurt me. You did this. And the reason is, you say, what's the difference between saying you hurt me and I felt hurt by what you did? And the difference is that you're going to get a lot more defensive when I start the sentence with you.
Yeah.
It's accusatory, and people shut down. And so it's really hard when you're angry to confront instead of to pay back. So our tendency is to go like for instance, and I'll tell you this, like, Peter, if you step on my foot and I go like, you asshole, that's not a confrontation. Like that's just a counterpunch. Okay.
Right. Accusation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, ouch. I really got hurt there when you walked by. Like that really hurts. The thing that you just did, that really hurt. Like I really got hurt by that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm hearing so far, a good confrontation starts with "ouch," not "you asshole." This is helpful.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm glad I could help. I'm glad I could help. Are we done here?
Start.
Yeah.
No, maybe that's the biggest takeaway for everyone.
So it's just really important. But the other thing is that it's really helpful if a good confrontation is one where you tell the person as specifically as you can, like, this is what hurt me, or this is what's hurting on me. This is why this is bothering me. That you center it in like, this is the injury that was done to me, not like, you're so awful for doing it, because sometimes somebody can hurt you and they're not doing anything wrong, right? They're just doing their own, like, I'm just sitting there eating my cereal, right? And my wife goes, could you eat any softer than that? You are slurping. I can't hear myself think. What, you suck. And like, that's going to get me very defensive. But, and the fact of the matter is, I'm not doing anything wrong, but like, it's still bothering her. And so she has a right to say, I am so distracted by the noises that you make when you eat. Like, I can't hear myself think. You're like, okay, so you've confronted me. You've told me like something I'm doing is bothering you, but like, you've done it in a way that you're owning the fact that like, it's bothering you. You're not saying like, you eat way too loud. I hate the way you eat.
Right.
Okay. So first of all, like, I think what you want to recognize is in a confrontation, your job is to try to make the other person aware of the problem. To make the other person aware of the problem that is their behavior or that is your feelings. Okay. But like, it's about making them, it's about giving them awareness and letting, and if in fact you're angry, it's okay to say like, and I'm really angry about this. I'm really upset about this. I'm really hurt by this. This is how I'm feeling. I'm letting you know. And in a sense, it's kind of an invitation. Like, what do you want to do with that? Yeah. I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy saying, I'm sad. I'm very hurt. I'm upset. Okay. So I'm going to skip over, like, cause we're up against time, and I don't, like, the real action here is what happens next.
Right. But I think you are saying though, that if you start poorly, what happens next is harder.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
You don't get, there are certain ways of confronting that, and that are more likely to inject, to less likely to put the person on the defense. I'll give you another one. It's really simple. Like, don't call anybody any names. Just take name call, like, like name calling.
Yeah. No name calling.
Asshole, selfish, jerk, manipulator. Like even if you want to say somebody's behavior was manipulative, don't call them a manipulator. You're such a control freak. Go like, I feel controlled when you do that.
Right. I felt manipulated is different than you are a manipulator at your core.
Absolutely.
You always do. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And that'll tie into what happens with forgiveness. Okay. So hold that thought. So you put something out there, or maybe sometimes you don't have to put something out there. Maybe sometimes like you just bleed and the other person realizes like, oh geez, I did something wrong. I mean, sometimes people, we do something wrong. We know we did something wrong. We screwed up. So an apology doesn't always require a confrontation in front of it. Sometimes an apology just comes unbidden when we become aware that we've done something wrong. But let's say you or I or Kristen, I mean, I know it hardly ever happens to Kristen, become aware of some deep wrongdoing that we've done. Okay. And there's the apology that we make in the moment. I'm 3 hours late and we've missed the show and I forgot. And I go, I'm so, and like, I'm so sorry I'm late. I'm so sorry I screwed up this night. Like, you just like, there's the provisional apology that you might put, or when somebody says to you like, hey, you really messed up the meeting with that comment that you made. And you go like, I'm, gosh, I'm sorry you feel that way. Or I'm sorry. Like you're okay to like, it's okay to go like, whatever, the provisional apology, but the real apology generally comes after you've thought about it for a second. And I'm going to give you the 5 elements of a really good apology. Okay. I wrote them down. I'm going to run through them really fast. All right. So 5 elements of a really good apology is the first thing you do is you have to express regret. Say what you're sorry for specifically. How the other person was hurt, what happened. I'm sorry I was late. I'm sorry the show got ruined. I'm sorry that our business failed. I'm sorry this thing happened. I'm sorry you got hurt. Okay. I'm sorry so part of it is expressing regret and letting the person know that you understand, that you grasp the harm that was done to them. That you're like, that must have, like, when I didn't show up, you must have been so scared. You must have been so upset. Like, I know how much you were looking forward to this show. And I'm it must have just been so disappointing to you. You must be so angry. I hear your anger and I understand why you're angry. You have to demonstrate your awareness of and your sorrow about the harm that's been caused to the other person. So like, I'm sorry this happened. I'm sorry about what happened and why and this is why I'm sorry. I'm sorry because it hurt you. I'm sorry because it let you down. I'm sorry because it's something that you're really sensitive about and I should have known better. Like, I'm sorry. But then the second part of the apology is where you accept responsibility. Because like an apology that's not an apology is like, I'm sorry that bothered you. Right? Because what you're really saying is, I'm sorry you're so sensitive. Yeah. Or like if I did what I did and if that bothered you, I'm really sorry. Like, I'm sorry you're such a oversensitive jerk. And so in the same kind of jujitsu movement, I'm sorry. And then you have to quickly pivot to, I was wrong too. You have to accept responsibility. You have to focus on your own behavior. Like, I'm sorry that the play got ruined. I was wrong for not learning my lines, or I was wrong for showing up late, or I was wrong and you have to own what you did.
I feel like the acceptance of our own faults can sometimes be so hard. And I wonder why that is. Like, why we assume we shouldn't be making any mistakes or hurting people. I think like when I see I'm sorry that you're so sensitive. What is it about us that doesn't want to just accept that we hurt people?
Just listen to your own sentence. We hurt people. Like,
yeah.
why would that be hard to accept? Like, because it's crummy. I was wrong.
Yeah.
Feels bad.
I think maybe you're speaking to expectations though, right? Like, is it the ego that just like, I'm a good person, so a good person should never hurt somebody, right? This, I think you've talked about before, like, I'm a good person, therefore I should be good at relationships, right? So it's really hard for me to say I'm a good person and I hurt people, right? Like it feels like those shouldn't be allowed in
Yeah.
the same bucket. And most people, at least from my experience, tend to label themselves good people, right? Right?
And here's the interesting thing on that. There's this woman that's made a cajillion dollars with the greatest TED talk and book in the world, like Brene Brown, this thing, Daring Greatly, the power of vulnerability. And if you climb into that world, like she's really good at articulating why it's freeing to admit that we're fallible, to admit that we're limited, to admit that we're vulnerable. And what I would say is like, it is hard to be vulnerable, and saying I was wrong is a form of vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And there is like, once somebody learns, what happens is, because for instance, somebody gets up in front of a crowd of people and they say, you know what, I struggle with bedwetting, and I've struggled with it my whole life, and I wet the bed. And they get down, and people, and they go like, everyone's going to think I'm a terrible loser if I admit this. So they finally confess the terrible thing, and they get down, and people walk up and they go like, I wet the bed too. That was so courageous of you to say that. Oh, thank you so much for being so vulnerable. And we actually find that people do not see us as weak when we confess our vulnerability. They actually see it as a form of strength. And they find it courageous, and they are attracted to vulnerable people. That we think people will be repelled if we let them know that we make mistakes, and actually people are attracted to vulnerable people. And saying I was wrong is not a very far thing from saying I'm weak. Mm-hmm. I'm fallible. I make mistakes. And so part of this is like, in a larger sense, we have to teach our children and teach ourselves and teach each other that when you admit that you don't know something, a part of the other person thrills and goes, oh, I could teach you something. You don't have all the answers? Oh, neither do I. I feel much more safe in your presence now. And so the power of vulnerability is a whole other conversation. Mm-hmm. But like what I'm saying is that in this moment, Kristen, that's the key. Like if we can teach somebody that this is not an act of weakness, but an act of strength, it's a lot easier to say, I was wrong to do this.
Yeah.
And one of the things is, when I say I was wrong to do this, it's very different than saying I'm a terrible person. Peter said it well. Like, I'm saying I, good person, was wrong. Like, the reason this is remarkable, the reason I am saying it, is because like I generally don't do these things. But in this situation, I'm going to remark upon this because like this is out of character for me. Something I'm not proud of. And here's the key. When you accept responsibility, it's really important that you focus only on your own behavior, that you don't implicate the other person. You don't go like, I was wrong to curse you out, but you just made me so mad when you made that face, and I couldn't help it. Because that's, all of a sudden you're implicating them, and you're not taking responsibility. You're saying that it was their fault that you did what you did. Now they may have some culpability in this conflict, but when you apologize, you don't apologize for the whole conflict. You apologize for what you're responsible for. And it's not your job to highlight also that they also have a part in this. In almost every conflict between a married couple, including infidelity, there's culpability on both sides. Almost always. That there was a withdrawal, or not always on purpose, but like almost always, like there's a whole set of things that set somebody up to be vulnerable, to make that kind of betrayal. And so it would be very easy for the person, as they come back, to apologize and go like, I'm so sorry I had an affair, but like, you were just so unavailable to me emotionally, and we hadn't had sex for a long time. And like, they're basically saying like, so like, what else was I going to do? And that's a crappy apology. You have to say, I was wrong to, and focus on your own behavior. The third part of a good apology is the offer to make restitution. It's like, I was wrong to do this. And then the next question you want to ask is, what can I do to make things better? Or, I know what I need to do. I was wrong to run over your mailbox. And I just want, like, I it must have been so frustrating for you when you saw it. And it was my fault. I wasn't looking where I was going. And I want you to know, I'm going to pay for your mailbox and I'm going to fix the lawn around it. So sometimes you know what you need to do. And sometimes you just go like, what can I do? And sometimes the answer is there's nothing you can do. You broke the vase that my mother gave me. It's an irreplaceable thing. There's only one of them and it's gone now. There's nothing you can do. But you offer. So is there anything I can do to make things better?
I do like that language too about make it better instead of make it right. Because like you said, make it right. Like sometimes it would have been better had you just not done it. And there's no way to make it right. It's not writable anymore, but you can make it better. Yeah.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, that's exactly it. And so restitution is like, I'm going to do what I can. And so like that demonstrates that like, in a sense, that's the action point of like, are you really, it was your fault and you really are sorry about it? How do I know that? Because you want to do something. You feel indebted. You feel obligated. You feel obliged. Okay, so that's good. Now, the fourth part is even more important. And that is you have to promise change. If you apologize for something like, I'm sorry that I ran over your mailbox. I wasn't paying attention. I was drunk. And you don't promise that you're going to pay attention because you're not going to drink anymore. Like if you don't tell me what you're going to do to make it right, the apology falls flat. So it's like, I'm committed to doing X or Y or Z to ensure this kind of thing doesn't happen again. Or I'm committed to doing X, Y, or Z so you can begin to trust me again. Like I've broken your trust. So you say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to rehab, or I'm going to get counseling, or I'm going to read a book about, or I'm going to let you, like I'm going to give you access to this thing I didn't give you access to. Like I want you to be able to trust me again. And I'm committed to earning your trust back this way. You have to make a promise that there's going to be change. Otherwise, if somebody says, hey, I'm sorry I was late, honey. And I was late last week and I was late the week before. And you go like, I'm sorry I was late. What are you going to do to change it? Nothing. Like, are you going to buy a watch? No. Are you going to leave the office an hour earlier? No, I'm not actually. You're like, I'm just sorry. Like, then it turns into, I'm sorry this bothers you. But what I'm doing wasn't really wrong. Because if it was wrong, you would change it.
Yeah.
So you got to promise change. Sense. Yeah. And especially when trust is broken, you got to promise, you got to recognize like, I'm going to do this so that you can begin to trust me again. Like it's, trust is hard, easy to lose and hard to win back, but like it can be won back. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do to convince me that you're trustworthy now that you've broken my trust?
Hey everyone, it's Kristen. Just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for tuning in. I hope that you're finding these messages helpful for you in your everyday life. That's what we're trying to do here is gather around the idea that life is a gift and love is the point, and let's give ourselves ways to move forward in that in our own everyday world. So I wanted to take a moment to say thank you for being a part of this community. To those of you who have participated and given financially, we want to say thank you to you. Everything that we do here happens because people make contributions. People say, I value this place. I want it to exist for me and for other people, and so I'm going to support it. And so we just want to say how grateful we are that you do that. And for those of you who maybe haven't had a chance to contribute yet, we would ask you to consider maybe doing so. If you find this place beneficial, if you find these messages helpful for you, then consider joining us in that way. You can go to eastlakecc.com to make a contribution, and we just always are thankful for the people who want this place to exist. So thanks again for tuning in. Let's get back to the message.
The fifth element is maybe the one that sometimes we forget about as we go like, I'm sorry, and I'm going to do this to fix it, and we forget to request for forgiveness, to actually say the words, please forgive me, or I hope you will be able to forgive me. to demonstrate your hope and your desire to build a better friendship in the future. Like, please forgive me, or I hope you'll be able to forgive me. What you don't do is demand forgiveness. You know, do you forgive me? So you forgive me, right? Like, sometimes it takes time. So that's a request that you make with no strings attached. But one of the things that requesting forgiveness does is it reminds the other person that they have power, that is theirs to grant or not to grant, that you recognize that you are dependent upon them. And sometimes when people apologize, they almost do it in a kind of an aggressive way, where it's like, look, I'm saying I'm sorry, and you need, like, and that I've taken care of it. I've done all I can do. I've said I'm sorry. That's all I can do. Yeah. And it's really important that your apology end with a request that makes it clear that, like, actually it doesn't depend on me whether we get reconciled. It depends on you.
That's thorough. That's better than many of my apologies, Bart.
And here's the thing, and Peter, here's the thing, like, a lot of times it's so thorough that it's hard for somebody who's not super articulate to do. And so what I would say is that sometimes you stumble through an apology, and what you're really doing in your initial apology is you're sort of like, this is a placeholder. Like, I'll get back to you. Like, I know you deserve a proper apology. I'm really sorry, but it's going to take me a minute. Like, I want to work up a proper apology. And then you go back and you go like, and then what are you doing? I sit down with a piece of paper and I go, step 1, step 2, and right on. And you go, you don't show up at the next conversation and go like, hey, do you have a few minutes? Because I want to properly apologize to you. And you have notes, and you go, well, if they see you reading off your notes, then they'll know it's not sincere. It's not from your heart. Just the contrary. If they see you reading off their notes, they're going to know, like, you really thought about this and you're really working hard to get the words right. And so you go like, people very much in conflict situations, people underestimate the power of intention and demonstrating your intention and demonstrating your goodwill, and writing it out doesn't undermine your credibility. It enhances it.
I have a question. I feel like this is so helpful for when I'm thinking, like, when I know I've, like, really messed up. Having this language is really helpful. And this is me being vulnerable right now. I feel like in our marriage, a lot of our conflict is when, like, when the other person doesn't think they've done anything wrong. So, like, the conflict is like, we're not seeing the situation the same way. And so, like, I know Andy's he's way better than I am at apologizing when he, like, knows he's, like, crossed a line or did something, like, forgot something, like all those things. But, like, a lot of our conflict is, like, bickering over small things where we just don't see eye to eye, and it turns into bigger conflict because neither one of us is like, I didn't do anything. We're both like, I didn't do anything wrong.
I'm going to give you one of my favorite analogies. Okay. So you're driving down the road, right? You're driving down the road in the middle of the night. You come over a hill, and in the road in front of you is a family fixing their car. Kids are in the car. Family's fixing their car. Guys changing the tire. That's in one lane. And in the other lane is the family dog. Okay. And you're going 80 miles an hour. So you're within the speed limit. What are you going to do? And you go like, well, if you're thoughtful, you swerve and you run over the dog.
Do you know that I had that question in driver's ed? She asked me.
Maybe that's where I got this. Maybe that's
she asked me. She was like, what do you do? And I was like, I don't know. And she goes, you hit the dog. And I'm like, no, you can't hit the dog.
Yeah, right. You hit the dog. Right. And then the question is, and then you stop the car. And the question is, do you owe that family an apology? They broke down in the middle of the road. Their dog is in the middle of the road. You were driving the speed limit. You did nothing wrong. In fact, you made your driver's ed teacher is going, Kristen, I'm so proud of you. You listened and you learned. Okay. You've done nothing wrong. Do you owe that family an apology? Of course you do. You killed their dog. They're in pain. They're in pain. You've done nothing wrong. So you come back and you say, what's step one? You go like, I am so sorry your dog died. I hit your dog. I killed your dog. I'm so sorry that I hit your dog. And I'm just sorry that I was the one, I was driving down this road. I wish I hadn't been driving down this road and I hadn't killed your dog. I wish I hadn't done it. Is there anything I can do, like to make it better? I'm going to be even more, I was driving this carefully, but I'm going to be even more careful now that I'm aware of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope you can forgive me. And they're going like, you didn't do anything wrong, lady. Like, but you're hurt.
Yeah.
But you're hurt. And so like, you can apologize for being the person who happened to be behind. Like, it could have been anybody driving the road could have hit their dog, but I'm sorry that it was me. I'm sorry that I'm the one that did it.
Yeah. The reality of the situation. Yeah.
I'm sorry about the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and like, you go like, and if I didn't exist, we wouldn't be here today. And so I'm sorry, in some sense, like, I'm sorry I exist. Like, that was my offense. Like, and I'm not sorry I exist, but from your perspective, it would have been better for you if I wasn't here. And so I'm sorry I'm the one that did this.
Yeah.
And so you can own it.
Yeah.
I think of that in our marriage too. I think of like, as we've been married longer, Brittany and I've had to get more comfortable with, like, this isn't like an objective problem. This is a personal preference. And when I cross that personal preference, it hurts you. It's annoying. If you were to cross that line for me, it wouldn't annoy me. It wouldn't bug me. You wouldn't have to apologize, but I have to apologize when I cross that personal preference for you. And that is annoying sometimes because we all like to think we have like this objective lens on right and wrong and morality and good relationship skills. But like, apologizing when I annoy her is something that I think we have to be okay with. It's kind of hard to do that.
Though some conflicts are not resolvable, like you like it hot, she likes it cold, like, right? That's right. And so you go like, so you figure out ways to manage those conflicts. But like, once you've worked that way out, sometimes you come up with an accommodation. Like, in these situations, we turn the heat up. In these situations, we turn it down and you bring a sweater or whatever.
Yeah.
And then somebody breaks that, or somebody rebels against the accommodation, or they go like, I'm so sick of doing this for you. And then the thing that they can apologize for is not liking it hot, but it's not, I'm sorry that I didn't respect the agreement, or I'm sorry that I wasn't, that I made you feel bad about something that's completely outside of your control. Yeah. So a lot of times that's what it comes down to is, so that's a whole other set. Like, again, like, that's like, we'll move that, like, it's like the vulnerability thing, like, move that over there. There's a whole conversation to be had about how do couples reach accommodation, or friends or anyone, when the conflict is irresolvable. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like, you believe in God and I don't. And it really upsets you that I'm going to hell. And it really upsets me that you think I'm going to hell. Mm-hmm. And you're like, we're not going to fix that. You're like, so how do we work out? How do we make that conflict less toxic? So that's a whole, but these apologies work best in cases where there's clear and obvious wrongdoing and somebody knows they've done wrong. But sometimes even in one of those, the wrongdoing comes on top of it, because it's like, I know you can't do anything about that, but I make you feel bad about it. Mm-hmm. I make you feel bad for being who you are. I let you know what a drag it is to be married to you. And in that situation, I owe you an apology. Even if I've done nothing wrong, there's something wrong about making you feel like a drag. Yeah. Okay. So, and we're flying through time. Like, do you have time for the rest, or do you just want to leave it there?
What's the rest? I thought this was the rest.
I'll give you 5 minutes. Okay. Because then the ball goes in the other person's court, and you go like, what is forgiveness? And boy, you guys could have a whole East Lake series on forgiveness. And particularly once you step outside of the Christian paradigm and you go like, why forgive if it's not commanded? Right? And the answer is there's a lot of really healthy reasons to forgive. There's a lot of reasons forgiveness is part of every religion, because like human beings, basically, if they can't figure out how to forgive each other, bonobos will tell you the same thing. So elephants, like if you can't figure out how to resolve conflict, like no tribe can hold together, and you're out there in the world on your own. But one of the things I always say to people when I'm teaching them forgiveness is it's really important to figure out what forgiveness isn't. It isn't tolerance. It isn't forgetting or saying that doesn't matter. It isn't sweeping it under the rug, as you said earlier. It's not surrendering your right to justice. If somebody hurts you and you forgive them, if somebody runs over your mailbox and you forgive them, that doesn't mean they don't have to pay for the mailbox, right? When you forgive somebody, it's not that. It's not inviting somebody to hurt you again, saying, "Hey, don't worry about it. You can do that again." Like, it's not a big deal. And then they go, "Oh, it's not a big deal. I'll do it again." What forgiveness is, there's three things, at least three things. Maybe I'll give you four. The first aspect of forgiveness is you got to separate the person from the hurt that they caused. Okay. You got to separate the person from the hurt that they caused. So how might you do it? You might like sit down with a piece of paper and go like, okay, what are 3 or 4 descriptive words about Kristen? You know, like, I don't know Kristen very well. You do, Peter. Like, can you give me a few descriptive, make them positive. Positive.
Kind. I would put
Kind?
Kristen in the kind bucket. I'd put her in the thoughtful person, meaning I think she's quite thoughtful.
Right,
Like she's not rash or like just like reactive.
Beautiful.
I think
Okay.
she'd be pretty intentional.
Okay, move on.
Good.
I don't want to hear how great she is.
Okay.
I do. This is fantastic.
Just give me 3 words.
How about friendly?
Friendly. Okay. Kind, friendly.
Thoughtful.
Sort of.
Oh,
thoughtful.
sorry. Yeah, thoughtful.
No, that's great.
Okay.
Kind, friendly, and thoughtful. Those are great. Okay.
Cool.
So you go like, okay, so like I could do that for my wife. I could do that for a lot of people, right? You know, so you make that list, and then underneath it you go, what are 3 to 4 descriptive words about the wrongdoing that she did? So you go like, that was selfish. That was thoughtless. That was that was mean. Like, and you go like, wait. So what I'm saying is Kristen is this, but what she did is this. And so the first part of forgiveness is when we're really mad at somebody, we're not like, they're not the person who hurt us. They're a monster. They're the herder. They're the abuser. They're like, and you go like, no. Thoughtful, kind, friendly. But the action that they did, selfish, mean, hurtful. And you go like, okay, so you separate the person from the act. And that's a really important thing to do, to recognize that, like, it's just like we do with mental health and in general. We don't say somebody's schizophrenic. We say that's a person who has schizophrenic disorder. Because like they're more than just their diagnosis, right?
Right.
And she's
Right.
more than she's more than the person who stepped up, who spat all over you in the meeting and made you feel like an idiot. She's more than that. Okay, she's kind and thoughtful and friendly. And what she did was that was mean and selfish and rotten. So I think that's the first step. You separate the person. You remember, oh, we're dealing with a person here. She recovers her humanity in your eyes. And boy, you think about your husband or your wife, how sometimes
that's really important.
they become lost in the red mist of your anger towards them, and they are just, he's an asshole. She's a bitch. And no. That's a loving, kind, thoughtful, smart person who did this thing that I am furious about. I'm so mad about. The second thing you do is, if you're going to really forgive somebody, and take some time to do, is you have to surrender your right to get even. Forgiveness is about going like, you hurt me and I'm not going to hurt you back. Not an eye for an eye. Well, to do that, you kind of have to go like, what would getting even look like? Like, think about what they did to you and go like, what would it mean if I was going to get even? If I was going to get even, I would do this. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to punch her right in the mouth. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to wreck his birthday party so that he could know what it feels like. And, people do this stuff. You got to imagine, like, what does this person deserve, or what would be fair, or what would you like to do? And then you have to like articulate that, look at it and go like, I'm not going to do that. Can we just be honest? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. And not just because I can't or because I'm surrendering it. Even if I could do it, I wouldn't do it. Separate yourself. Okay. And then the third thing you do is, and this is the hardest of them all, is you got to revise your feelings. And you know you've revised your feelings when you're actually able to articulate that you want to seek the other person's best interest. And so then what I'd say to that is you got to actually sit down and go like, given what Peter just did to me, what would be the best outcome for Peter? So the best outcome might be like, I hope Peter learns something here. I hope Peter gets rehab. I hope Peter I hope Peter overcomes his selfishness. I hope he changes. I hope he goes to jail and they teach, and so that he won't hurt anybody else. And while he's there, he gets rehabilitated. Like I want restorative justice. Like I don't want to let him off the hook. I want him to get better. I want this never to happen again. What needs to happen? And then you have to ask the question. And again, if you're spiritual, if you're religious, or if you're agnostic, you would ask this differently. But like, can I hope that for them? Can I actively say, like, I hope that happens. I hope he learns this and has a great life because he becomes such a better person. Or I pray that this happens for this person. There's one last aspect of this, and I know we're over time, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway because it's so important. Is it's really good to identify what's in the other person's best interest, but if you're going to really forgive people, you have to identify your own best interest too. And you have to go like, in this moment, is it in my best interest to have contact with this person? Is it in my best interest to cooperate with them again? Is it in my best interest to trust them? Because sometimes forgiveness hinges on you recognizing that it is in your best interest to forgive the other person. That they're 20 minutes late, but you've been planning on watching this show all night or all week. And you'd be better off forgiving them so that you could just let your feelings go and go and enjoy the show with them. You're going to be married to them for a long time. You're going to be friends with them again eventually. And if you choose to be friends with them now, you can get on with the show. And so sometimes forgiveness isn't just about thinking about the other person's best interest. It's about thinking about your own. And I will add, Peter, sometimes your own best interest means I'm going to forgive this person and I'm not going to let them back in my life. I'm not going to let them back. They're too dangerous.
Yeah.
All right, that's it.
So that's all you got.
That's all I got. That's all I got.
No, I love it, Bart. This is so helpful. I think it's great because I got notes. I'm taking notes on it just to like keep record in my brain of, because I think we try to include some elements. I think we've been trained, whether that's through example or watching others, I think, apologize, but understanding it kind of broken down and understanding the different elements, I think is just critical because ultimately, like you said at the beginning, a lot of the challenges related to our mental health are connected to how we navigate relationships, and relationships are good until they aren't, right? Everybody's like low stress about their relationships until there's conflict, and there's always a conflict in an ongoing relationship. So anyways, I think what you're speaking to is helpful.
The myth of Hollywood is that a great relationship depends on finding the right person. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite guys, Alain Dubuton, wrote a very famous article going on why you will marry the wrong person.
You sent that to us.
Yeah, so good.
I think I sent there was an article. So was there a video? I think there was a video.
Yeah, he has a video too.
Yeah, I sent it to
there is no
so
right
many
person.
people. Yeah.
There is no right person. Whoever it is, and if they are the right person, wait 6 months and they'll become the wrong person.
Right.
And so what our relationships depend on is not finding the right partner who will never cross us and with whom we are perfectly compatible, but it's developing a really good processing system so that when we cross each other, we move through it fast. If you want to know what the hallmark of what the thing I'm proudest of in my marriage is that when it started, we would have conflict. And sometimes it would take a week or a couple of weeks before we would start being friends again. It took us a long time to say we were sorry, and it took us an even longer time to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And now the same conflict oftentimes will be resolved in 5 minutes, because we both know where it's going and we know what's required, and we trust the other person's sincerity because they've apologized to us, and we've forgiven them back and forth so many times that we go like, I know she means it. I know he means it. And what happens is that the difference is that we don't lose 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say part of this whole thing is that why this is part of mental health is that we've had that happen too. And it's like the state of my mind during those 3 days when I'm just like stewing.
Yeah,
it's not
terrible.
It's
Brutal.
terrible. And so the better you can get at practicing these things, I think, is how you spare yourself that unhealthy
months.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm doing here? I mean, I'm agreeing with you.
Are you apologizing to your wife?
No, my wife is texting me saying, you said you'd be down at 4:00.
Yeah.
Good.
It's 4:22.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Are you coming? And so like, I'm actually going to have to go and apologize right now.
That's perfect. That's a perfect.
This was great, but we're
Thank
done.
you, Bart.
Cool.
I love you both. I'll talk
Thank
to you
you,
guys
Bart.
later. All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us. To make a donation, head to eastlakecc.com/donate.